What's up everyone, welcome back to ARTV. My name is John and it's time for a review of the third studio album by the English rock and psychedelic band Temples. This one is titled Hot Motion. For the past few years, I've been buzzing about Temples anytime I got the chance to. I think Volcano was one of the best albums of 2017. It relied really heavily on these psychedelic pop melodies that just sounded so fantastic to the ear. It was an explosive record that learned from the first album, Sun Structures, which is solid. There's a lot of songs on there that I do like. And they were gaining a lot of buzz at the time of 2014, 2015, because, oh look, it's this band that has this retro vintage sound, but you can't coast by on just that. You have to dial it up somehow, and Volcano was the answer to that. It was solving really any problems that I might have had with the group. And now on Hot Motion, going into it, the title track was electrifying. I loved the nightmarish mood that it was able to create. And then the follow-up single, You're Either On Something, is fantastic. It's got some great plays on words. So I was really interested to see how were they going to follow up both of those singles not only, but also that amazing record, Volcano. When you sit down to hit play on Hot Motion as an album for the first time, expect some of the grittier guitars that you got on Sun Structures, but also that keen insight for songwriting, for pop melodies almost, that you got on Volcano. When you combine the two together, you would think that everything would be explosive as hell and that this record would be unstoppable, but instead, I'm finding that there seems to be something missing in the mix. Before I go any further there are absolutely some explosive moments, some even very trippy moments that I really do enjoy. There's some exuberant experiences to be had with Hot Motion as an album, but I also feel that they put some of their best feet forward with the singles, and the rest of the record is kind of playing catch up. I feel that James Bagshaw, the lead guitarist and also the lead vocalist, of course, himself producing this record allowed him to again draw from the well of everything that he listened to growing up, all of these bands that were from the 60s, the 70s, even the 80s possibly, and it seems like he's pouring them into this cup, and it seems like he knows what he wants, but it doesn't always translate that well to tape. Easily some of the most interesting elements that this record has to push forward come in the form of the instrumentals, the guitars, the bass, and also the drumming on some of these cuts, like the title track, Hot Motion. The shrill of the guitar leads the charge on some of the cuts like Step Down, and also these groovy bass lines that pop up are definitely a ton of fun to connect to and listen to. They draw you into the experience, but on the other side of the fence, then you have the lyrics and the vocals, and the second half of this record in particular really struggles in that department. Hot Motion starts off with 3 bangers in a row, 3 home runs, if you will. I feel that the album does drop off slightly after that, but also there's still some good chemistry between the bandmates here. You can tell that they were definitely on to something in the studio. They were pushing themselves forward with a specific sound in mind. It's a very cohesive record, which I definitely appreciate in the day and age of singles. But also, again, there's something that kind of seems to start to crumble when you start to peek into the lyrics a little bit more. Whereas on Volcano, I could do that and I'm like, oh wow, that seems insightful, or that opens my mind a little bit more. Here, it just feels like there's something missing, and it really gets a little bit frustrating because I want to love this record more than I do. With most albums that I review on the channel, there's easy standouts in terms of the best songs and the worst songs. And with Hot Motion, there's absolutely the best ones, but beyond that, there's more so just mediocre moments that might have elements that I find to be quite keen and insightful musically, but also they drive themselves into repetition. For example, the Howl. It feels anthemic, but it also drags itself back down the more you listen to it, because I feel that the repetition and the way that the cycling drums and vocals just keep hitting you, instead of getting more explosive, they just feel like they're starting to put me to sleep. Atomize is one of the songs that does a fantastic job at splitting up the different molecules. They go in different directions. It starts off slower, it shows restraint, and it shows maturity. And then it does get into something where it really launches off and takes the song to a different level. You won't believe how catchy the guitars on Holy Horses are. I also love the vocal melody on that one. It's light on its feet, it's quick, it's a thundering punch that's going to remind you of the 60s and that style of music, I do believe. A lot of people are going to say that this album is incredibly influenced by Tame Impala, and I hear it on some of these cuts. Holy Holy Horses maybe even being one of those, but not one of the most big moments that would remind me of Kevin Parker and company. But on some of these tracks in particular, it's hard to say that Tame Impala doesn't feel like it was an influence because he's very adamant about the fact that they weren't. You're Either On Something is trippy as hell, and the lyrics here, as James Bagshaw himself put it, they're some of the best that he's ever written, and I back him up on that statement. I feel that this song really does just take you into the nth dimension where you're not exactly sure where you're going, but it's so much fun to be there you don't want to leave anytime soon. The title track, Hot Motion, landed, and it's absolutely one of my favorite songs of the year. This is a thundering song. The drums on this track are impeccable. I love that opening riff that does set everything into movement and the way that it keeps driving itself forward. The breakdown of the track on the full version, the single version is still great, but the full version of the song is where it's at. You just kind of feel like you're in a spiral when you're listening to this song and you're not sure where your mind is going to take you next. And I love the creativity that they're able to flex, and I would have loved to have seen more like this on the entire record. They put their best foot forward, that's for sure. Not quite the same leads us back to the problem that I've already mentioned several times, and the fact that the music is extremely captivating, but the lyrics and the vocals just don't do a ton to move the dial forward. I could say similar things about Step Down, even though that track is growing on me a whole lot. The guitars there are riveting. They just really want to make you move. It's something that does feel like you could be dancing around a bonfire, for example. But then I just feel that the tracks surrounding it, maybe bringing it back down a little bit on some of the cuts like It's All Coming Out, and even Monuments just being an underwhelming closer. From the highs of Holy Horses and Context to the more mediocre desert plains of the Howl and Monuments, or Monuments. I mean, I even got the official stream in advance from the label, and it spelled it incorrectly. So is it Monuments or Monuments? Doesn't really matter all that much at the end of the day. It's a little bit of a confusing bag that we get here. It's a little twisted and disjointed. It is a cohesive record, but also that can sometimes work against it. Overall, I am disappointed in this, but it's by no means a bad album. I'm rating this a 3.5, and I would love to know what you guys think of Temple's Hot Motion in the comments section down below. Don't forget to drop a like on this review while you're here if you enjoy seeing me cover bands like this on the channel that I do feel deserve a lot more exposure. Then do hit that like button, share it out with somebody else that might enjoy this. Subscribe and join the neighborhood. Check out my last Temples review right here, another rock or alternative review right here. Socials in the description, and I'll see you soon for more on ARTV.